The Valoran Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their soldiers were giants, standing 8 feet tall with skin like armor and claws that could tear through metal. They had conquered 112 species across 1,000 worlds. No one had ever defeated them. No one had ever come close. Admiral Kethra sat on her command throne aboard the flagship Eternal Conquest, watching a holographic display with growing amusement. Her advisors stood around her, their mandibles clicking with laughter as the images played. "These are the creatures who call themselves humans?" Kethra asked, leaning forward. "These soft pink things?" The display showed footage captured from a human colony ship that had entered Valoran space 3 days ago. Human soldiers moved through training exercises, carrying weapons in their hands because their bodies had no natural defenses. They were small, barely reaching the chest of an average Valoran warrior. Their skin looked fragile, easily torn. Their movements seemed slow and clumsy. But what made the Valoran Council laugh the hardest was something else entirely. "They bring animals with them," one advisor said, pointing at the screen. "Look at this." They walk beside 4-legged beasts. They let these creatures sleep in their quarters. They share their food with them. The footage showed human soldiers training with dogs. German shepherds ran beside their handlers. Belgian Malinois leaped over obstacles. The humans praised them, petted them, and treated them like equals. Kethra laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the command chamber. What kind of species needs to borrow the senses of lesser creatures? What kind of warriors cannot fight without animals by their side? These humans are not soldiers. They are children playing at war. She turned to her fleet commander. "Send them our standard terms. Surrender and serve the Empire, or be destroyed. Give them 1 day to decide." The message was sent. And aboard the human colony ship Starward Hope, everyone gathered to hear the Valoran demands. Captain Maria Santos stood at the center of the bridge, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She was 43 years old and had spent 20 years in the Earth Defense Force. She had never lost a ship. She had never lost a battle. But she had also never faced anything like the Valoran Empire. "They want complete surrender," she said, her voice steady. "Every human will become a servant of their empire. Our technology will belong to them. Our colony will become their property. And our military working dogs will be destroyed as unnecessary." A murmur ran through the assembled crew. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morris stood near the back, his hand resting on the head of his Belgian Malinois, Archer. The dog was 3 years old, with a dark coat and intelligent brown eyes. He had been Jake's partner for 2 years, through training, through deployment, through everything. Jake was 31 years old, with broad shoulders and a calm face that rarely showed emotion. He had grown up on a farm in Kansas, surrounded by dogs his entire life. He had joined the Marines at 18 and the K-9 unit at 25. Archer was not his pet. Archer was his partner, his brother, his family. "They want to destroy the dogs," Jake said quietly, and something cold settled in his chest. "They think the dogs are a weakness." Sergeant First Class Diana Cole stood beside him, her German Shepherd bear pressing against her leg. Bear was a massive dog, over 90 pounds of muscle and loyalty. He had saved Diana's life twice during training accidents and once during a pirate raid on a supply convoy. "They have no idea what they're asking for," Diana said. "They have no idea what these dogs mean to us." Captain Santos looked at the footage of the Valoran soldiers on a secondary screen. They were huge, terrifying, clearly designed for war. Her crew numbered 300 Marines and 2,000 colonists. The Valoran fleet surrounding them had enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But Maria Santos had not survived 20 years in space by surrendering. "We need options," she said. "Real options. Not suicide runs, not desperate last stands. I need to know what we can actually do against these things. Jake stepped forward. Permission to speak freely, Captain? Santos nodded. The Valorans are bigger than us. Stronger than us. Faster than us. Jake paused, looking down at Archer. But they've never fought anything like us. They conquer species who fight alone, who run when things get hard, who surrender when the odds look bad. They've never faced humans. And the dogs? Santos asked. Jake smiled, a thin expression that didn't reach his eyes. The dogs are why we're going to win. The Valorans think they make us weak. They think needing another creature to fight beside us is a sign of failure. But they don't understand what the dogs really are. What are they? Santos asked. Force multipliers, Jake said. A Marine is dangerous. A Marine with a war dog is something else entirely. These dogs can hear heartbeats through walls. They can smell explosives from 200 meters away. They can track an enemy through any terrain, in any conditions. They can fight in silence, strike without warning, and kill without hesitation. He looked around the bridge at his fellow handlers, at Diana with Bear, at the younger Marines with their own partners. But more than that, the dogs give us something the Valorans will never understand. They give us something worth fighting for beyond ourselves. Bear pressed his head against Diana's hand. Archer's tail wagged slowly, his eyes fixed on Jake's face. Every handler here will fight twice as hard because of their dog, Jake continued. Not despite them. Because of them. We don't fight alone. We fight for each other. And that makes us stronger than any 8-foot alien with armor for skin. Captain Santos was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to her communications officer. Send a response to the Valoran Admiral. Tell her we decline her terms. Tell her that humanity does not surrender. And tell her... Santos paused, a small smile crossing her face. Tell her that if she wants our dogs, she can come and try to take them. The message was sent. Across the void of space, Admiral Kethra received humanity's answer. She read it twice, certain there must be a translation error. They refused? She asked, disbelief coloring her voice. These soft creatures with their pet animals refused the mercy of the Empire. Yes, Admiral, her communications officer confirmed. They said if we want their dogs, we should come and take them. Kethra's eyes narrowed. For the first time in centuries, a species had defied the Valoran Empire. These weak, foolish humans with their silly animals thought they could stand against the greatest military force in the galaxy. Very well, she said, rising from her throne. Prepare the invasion force. We will teach these humans what happens to those who defy us. And we will kill every one of those animals just to watch them weep. She had no idea what she was about to unleash. She had no idea what war dogs really meant. But she was about to learn, the hard way. Kepler Station floated in the darkness between stars, a spinning wheel of metal and light that housed humanity's first permanent outpost beyond Earth's solar system. 2,000 colonists called it home. 300 Marines protected them, and 47 military working dogs stood ready to defend every single one. The Valoran attack came at dawn, station time. 10,000 shock troops descended on Kepler, stationed in drop pods that punched through the outer hull like needles through cloth. The colonists ran for the inner shelters, while alarms screamed through every corridor. Sergeant first. Class Diana Cole was already moving before the first pod hit. Bear ran beside her, his massive body flowing like water through the narrow passages. Behind her, 20 handlers and their dogs spread out through the station in teams of 2. Remember your training, Diana said into her comm unit. The Valorans have better hearing than us. They have better night vision. They are bigger and stronger in every way. But they have never fought dogs. They don't know what silent means. The first Valoran patrol moved through Corridor 7, their heavy feet shaking the metal floor. There were 12 of them, each one armed with plasma rifles that could cut a human in half. They expected screaming. They expected running. They expected easy prey. What they got was silence. Bear moved ahead of Diana, his black fur blending into the shadows between emergency lights. He made no sound. His padded feet touched the floor like whispers. 50 meters away, the Valoran patrol continued forward, unaware that death was watching them. Diana held up her hand, signaling the 3 Marines behind her. They waited. Bear waited. The Valorans came closer. In the old days, back on Earth, war dogs would bark and growl to intimidate enemies. But those days were long gone. Modern military dogs were trained for silence. They attacked without warning, struck without sound, and killed before their targets even knew they were there. Bear leaped from the darkness like a shadow coming to life. His jaws closed around the throat of the first Valoran, and his weight brought the giant alien crashing down. Before the others could react, Diana and her team opened fire, their rifles set to maximum power. The fight lasted 8 seconds. 12 Valoran soldiers died without sending a single distress call. Corridor 7 clear, Diana reported. Moving to Section 4. Across the station, similar scenes played out. Private First Class Danny Reeves was 19 years old, fresh out of training, and more scared than he had ever been in his life. His hands shook as he gripped his rifle. His breath came too fast, too loud. But Luna pressed against his leg, and he looked down into her amber eyes. Luna was a Belgian Malinois, smaller than Bear but faster, with a coat the color of sand. She'd have been Danny's partner for only 6 months, but in that time, she had become everything to him. She didn't know that they were outgunned. She didn't know that the odds were impossible. She only knew that Danny was her handler, and she would die before she let anything hurt him. "Okay, girl," Danny whispered, his voice steadying. "Let's do this." They moved together through the maintenance tunnels, following Luna's nose. She could smell the Valorans from 100 meters away, their alien scent unlike anything else on the station. She led Danny around ambush points and past hidden enemies, keeping him alive through a maze of death. When they finally had to fight, Luna struck first. She hit the Valoran soldier from behind, her teeth finding the soft spot where the alien's neck met its shoulder. Danny fired twice, dropping the second soldier before it could raise its weapon. "Good girl," Danny breathed, his heart pounding. "Good girl." Back on the Valoran flagship, Admiral Kethra watched the battle unfold with growing confusion. Her invasion force had encountered minimal resistance at first, just as expected. But then her soldiers started disappearing. Patrol after patrol went silent. No distress calls. No final transmissions. Just emptiness where a dozen warriors should have been. "What is happening?" Kethra demanded. "Where are my soldiers?" Her tactical officer pulled up helmet footage from the few cameras still transmitting. The images were confusing, fragmented. Shadows moving in the darkness. Glimpses of fur and teeth. And then nothing. "The animals," the tactical officer said slowly. "The humans are using the animals as scouts and killers. They move without sound. They attack without warning. Our soldiers cannot see them coming." Kethra stared at the footage. In one clip, a Valoran warrior turned just in time to see a shape lunging from the shadows. The camera showed teeth, impossible teeth, and then static. "This cannot be," Kethra said. "These are simple beasts. 4-legged creatures with small brains. How can they defeat Valoran shock troops?" But the numbers did not lie. In the first 3 hours of the invasion, the humans lost 42 Marines. The Valorans lost over 200 soldiers, many of them killed without ever seeing their attacker. On the station, Commander Jake Morris coordinated the defense from a secure bunker near the civilian shelters. Archer lay at his feet, his ears moving constantly as he listened for approaching enemies. "Diana, what's your status?" Jake asked. "We've cleared the eastern sectors," Diana replied, her voice tired but steady. "The bear is tracking a group of about 30 heading for the water recycling plant. If they take that out, we lose life support in 6 hours. Take your team and stop them. I'm sending Danny and Luna as backup." Jake looked at the tactical display, counting the red dots that represented Valoran forces. There were still thousands of them, pouring into the station from every direction. His people were holding, but they couldn't hold forever. Then a new voice came over the comm. "Captain Maria Santos, commanding the Starward Hope in orbit. Commander Morris, we've received a message from Earth. Reinforcements are coming. 3 battle cruisers and a full Marine regiment. They'll be here in 18 hours. Jake closed his eyes. 18 hours. It felt like a lifetime. "Can we hold that long?" he asked. Santos was quiet for a moment. "That's up to you and your dogs, Commander. The fleet will keep the Valorans busy in space, but the station is yours to defend." Jake looked down at Archer. The dog looked back, calm and ready. "We'll hold," Jake said. "Tell Earth to hurry. And tell them to bring more dogs. 18 hours. 300 Marines. 47 war dogs. And thousands of Valoran soldiers who were only just beginning to understand the terrible mistake they had made. The battle for Kepler Station was only beginning. And before it ended, the Valorans would learn why humanity had bred war into dogs for 10,000 years. They would learn what silent death truly meant, and they would never mock human soldiers again. The Valoran research vessel Silent Truth drifted in the cold space between stars. Its mission was simple: understand the enemy, learn their weaknesses, find ways to turn their own weapons against them. 3 war dogs sat in separate cells deep within the ship. Max was a Dutch shepherd with a scarred face and tired eyes. Bella was a German shepherd, young and fierce, with a coat like midnight. Duke was a Belgian Malinois, the oldest of the 3, with gray around his muzzle and a calm that came from years of service. They had been captured during a bloody engagement on Kepler Station. 500 Valoran soldiers had died to take these 3 animals. Admiral Kethra had ordered them captured alive, believing they held the secret to humanity's strange ability to fight. Now the lead scientist, a Valoran named Tethril, stood outside their cells and watched them with growing frustration. "They will not eat," Tethril reported to Admiral Kethra via holographic communication. "They will not sleep. They pace in their cells constantly, facing the direction of their handler's last known position. When we approach, they become violent. 3 of my assistants have already been injured." On the screen, Admiral Kethra frowned. "They are animals. They should respond to simple conditioning: food, comfort, the removal of threats. Why do they not adapt?" "I do not know," Tethril admitted. "Their loyalty is unlike anything in our records. Every other species we have conquered eventually submits. Even their warrior castes, given enough time and pressure, break. But these creatures—" He turned to look at Max, who stared back with eyes that held no fear, only a cold promise of violence. "They would rather die than serve anyone but their humans. It is not training. It is something deeper. Something we do not have words for." In the cell, Max pressed his nose against the cold metal floor. He could still smell his handler, Corporal Tony Garcia, on his own fur. The scent was fading, growing weaker with each passing hour. Max did not understand where Tony was. He did not understand why they were apart. He only knew that something was wrong, and he would not rest until he found his way back. Beside him, in the next cell, Bella howled. The sound echoed through the research vessel. a cry of loss and longing that made even the hardened Valoran guards shift uncomfortably. She'd been howling for 3 days. Her voice was growing hoarse, but she did not stop. Duke was quieter. He was old enough to know that howling would not bring his handler back. So he waited, watching, conserving his strength. He had been in bad situations before. He had always found his way home. He would find his way home again. Far across the stars, on a human military cruiser called Valiant, the handlers of the captured dogs gathered in a briefing room. Diana Cole stood at the front, a holographic map of Valoran space floating before her. "Intelligence has located the research vessel," she said. "It's here, in the Velkar system, about 16 hours at maximum speed. The Valorans are studying our dogs, trying to figure out how to turn them against us." Tony Garcia sat in the front row, his hands clenched into fists. He was 26 years old, with short dark hair and eyes that had not stopped crying since Max was taken. Beside him sat the handlers of Bella and Duke, both wearing the same expression of desperate hope and terrible fear. "They will never turn them," Tony said, his voice rough. "Max would die first." "That's what we're afraid of," Diana replied softly. "The Valorans don't understand the bond. They think if they apply enough pressure, the dogs will break. But we know the truth. Our dogs will starve themselves. They will fight until they're killed. They will never stop trying to get back to us." Commander Jake Morris stepped forward. He had been promoted after Kepler Station, given command of the newly formed War Dog Battalion. Archer sat at his feet, watching everyone with alert brown eyes. "We're going after them," Jake said. "Command has approved a rescue mission. 30 handlers, 30 dogs, and support from the Valiant and 2 frigates. We drop on the research vessel, we find our dogs, and we bring them home. What about the risk?" someone asked. "That's deep in Valoran territory. If something goes wrong, there's no rescue." Jake looked at the room, at the handlers who had volunteered the moment they heard the mission briefing. Every single one of them. Not one had hesitated. "They're our family," Jake said simply. "You don't leave family behind." The mission launched 12 hours later. The human ships dropped out of hyperspace in the Velkar system with weapons hot and shields at maximum. The Valoran escort fleet was caught off guard, unprepared for the ferocity of the human assault. While the frigates engaged the enemy ships, the Valiant pushed through the chaos toward the research vessel. Drop pods launched from its belly, carrying 30 handlers and 30 war dogs into the heart of enemy territory. Diana Cole was first through the hull breach, Bear at her side. The Valoran guards did not expect an attack from inside their own ship. They did not expect dogs. Bear hit the first guard before the alarm even sounded. Diana shot the second. Behind her, Jake and Archer moved like shadows, clearing rooms with brutal efficiency. They found the cells after 15 minutes of fighting. Tony Garcia burst through the door first, not caring about the danger, only caring about finding Max. Max. He called, "Max, boy, I'm here." A bark answered him. Then another. Then a howl that shook the walls. Bella's voice rising in joy for the first time in days. Tony reached Max's cell and tore at the lock with his bare hands. Jake stepped in and shot the mechanism, and the door swung open. Max lunged out, knocking Tony to the ground, licking his face, his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. "I got you," Tony whispered, wrapping his arms around his dog. "I got you, buddy. I'm never letting you go again." Bella and Duke were freed moments later. They pressed against their handlers, crying in the way dogs do. Soft whines and trembling bodies and eyes that said everything words could not express. But the mission was not over. The alarms were screaming now, and Valoran reinforcements were coming. "We need to move," Jake ordered. "Everyone, back to the drop pods." "Go, go, go!" They ran through corridors filled with smoke and fire. Danny Reeves covered the rear, Luna at his side. He was not scared anymore. He had seen what the Valorans did to captured dogs. He had seen the rescue. He understood now what he was fighting for. The last corridor was blocked by a squad of Valoran soldiers. There was no way around them. "I'll hold them," Danny said. "Get the dogs out." "Danny, no." Diana started, but Danny was already moving. Luna was beside him, matching his steps. He fired into the Valoran line, drawing their attention, giving the others time to find another route. A plasma bolt caught him in the chest. He went down hard, his rifle clattering away. Luna stopped, turned back, and stood over his body, growling at the approaching Valorans. "Luna," Danny whispered, reaching up with a shaking hand. "Luna, run, please." But Luna did not run. She stood her ground, teeth bared, protecting her handler until the end. When the Valorans got too close, she attacked, buying precious seconds with her Fury. Tony and the others made it to the drop pods. They escaped to the Valiant with all 3 rescued dogs. The mission was a success, but Danny Reeves died in that corridor, his hand resting on Luna's fur. His last words were soft, meant only for her. "Good girl." Luna survived. She was badly wounded, but she survived. And when the Valiant jumped to hyperspace, she lay in the medical bay, her head resting on Danny's jacket, waiting for a handler who would never come back. The bond between human and dog was not weakness, it was everything. 6 months into the war, the Valoran Empire learned the true meaning of fear. They had conquered 100 species. They had crushed armies that outnumbered their own. They had broken the will of entire civilizations with their size, their strength, their ruthless efficiency. But they had never faced anything like humanity, and they had never, ever faced the war dogs. Corporal Samantha Price moved through the jungle of Valoran Prime, the enemy's homeworld, with her Dutch shepherd Ghost by her side. Ghost was aptly named. His gray coat blended perfectly with the shadows beneath the alien trees. His feet made no sound on the strange purple moss that covered the ground. His nose could detect a Valoran from 300 meters away, even through the thick smell of rotting vegetation. Samantha was 24 years old. Small for a Marine, with red hair that she kept cut short and practical. She had been in the war from the beginning, one of the first handlers to face the Valorans at Kepler Station. Back then, she had been terrified. Now, 6 months later, she was something else entirely. Now she was a legend. "Ghost has movement," she whispered into her comm. "Valoran patrol, maybe 20, heading northeast. They're moving toward the power relay we targeted." Commander Jake Morris's voice came back, calm and steady. "Can you intercept?" Samantha smiled. "What do you think?" She moved like water through the jungle, Ghost leading the way. The Valoran patrol never saw them coming. One moment, they were marching toward their destination, confident in their superiority. The next moment, Ghost was among them, a blur of teeth and fury, and Samantha's rifle was cutting through their ranks. The fight lasted less than a minute. 20 Valoran soldiers fell. Samantha and Ghost disappeared into the jungle without a scratch. Back at the forward operating base, Jake watched the feed from Samantha's helmet camera with grim satisfaction. Archer lay at his feet, older now, gray creeping into his muzzle, but still alert, still ready. "That's the 14th patrol she's eliminated this week," Diana Cole said, standing beside him. Bear was with her, as always, his massive head resting on her thigh. "The Valorans are terrified of her. They've started calling her and Ghost the Shadow Twins in their communications." Jake nodded. "Good. Fear is useful. But we need more than fear to win this war." He pulled up a strategic map of Valoran space. 6 months ago, humanity had been on the defensive, fighting for survival against an empire that had never known defeat. Now, They were on the offensive, pushing into Valoran territory, liberating conquered worlds, and teaching the galaxy that humans were not prey, but the cost had been high. Too high. Diana looked at the casualty reports and felt her chest tighten. 112 handlers had died since the war began. 89 war dogs had been killed in action. Each name was a wound that would never fully heal. We got word from command, Diana said quietly. The Valorans are changing their strategy. They figured out that targeting the dogs hurts us more than anything else. They're ordering their soldiers to kill the dogs first, handlers second. Jake's jaw tightened. They think if they kill our dogs, we'll break, will we? Jake looked down at Archer. The old dog looked back with eyes that held perfect trust, perfect love. They had been together for 4 years now. Jake could not imagine his life without Archer in it. The thought of losing him was a pain that went beyond words. No, Jake said. We won't break, but it will change us. It will make us something they really don't want to face. The proof came 3 days later, at a supply depot on a moon called Velkar 7. Corporal Ben Taylor was not a combat marine. He was a logistics specialist, responsible for tracking supplies and coordinating shipments. His dog, Penny, was a gentle golden retriever who had been trained for search and rescue, not combat. They were supposed to be safe at the depot, far from the front lines, but the Valorans had other plans. The strike team hit the depot at midnight. 30 soldiers with orders to destroy supplies and kill every human they found. Ben was in the warehouse when the attack began, checking inventory with Penny at his side. Contact. Someone screamed over the comm. We have contact. Multiple enemies. Oh God, they're everywhere. Then static. Ben grabbed his sidearm, a weapon he had fired maybe twice in training, and looked at Penny. She was not a war dog. She did not know how to fight Valorans. She was a rescue dog, trained to find survivors and comfort the wounded. But she knew danger. And she knew that her handler was afraid. Come on, girl, Ben whispered. We need to hide. They moved through the warehouse, ducking between crates, trying to reach the emergency bunker. Ben's heart was pounding so hard, he could hear it in his ears. His hands shook. He was not a soldier. He was not brave. He was just a guy who was good with spreadsheets and loved his dog. The Valoran found them near the back of the warehouse. It was huge, easily 8 feet tall, with armor-plated skin and a plasma rifle that could vaporize a human in a single shot. Little creature, the Valoran said, its translator rendering its words in cold, flat tones. Your soldiers are dead. Your defense has failed. Surrender, and I will make your death quick. Ben raised his sidearm with trembling hands. He knew he could not beat this thing. He knew he was going to die. Then the Valoran looked at Penny and smiled. But first, it said, I will kill your animal, slowly, so you can watch. Something snapped inside Ben Taylor. He did not remember raising his weapon. He did not remember pulling the trigger. He only remembered the rage, pure and hot and absolute, flooding through him like fire. The first shot took the Valoran in the eye. The second hit its throat. Ben kept firing, kept moving, his body acting on instincts he did not know he had. The Valoran fell. Behind it, more soldiers poured into the warehouse. Ben did not run. He did not hide. He grabbed a rifle from a fallen Marine and took position behind a stack of crates. Penny pressed against his leg. You want my dog? He screamed at the approaching Valorans. You want my dog? Come and take her. He held that position for 16 minutes. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found Ben Taylor still standing, his rifle empty, a combat knife in his hand. Around him lay 37 dead Valorans. Penny was unharmed, sitting beside him, her tail wagging as she licked the blood from his face. How? The rescue team leader asked, staring at the carnage. How did you do this? Ben looked at him with empty eyes. He was shaking now, the adrenaline fading, the reality of what he had done crashing over him. She was my best friend, he said simply, and they were going to hurt her. The story spread through both armies. The Valorans heard about the logistics specialist who had killed 37 shock troops to protect a rescue dog. They heard about the rage in his eyes, the scream of defiance. The 16 minutes of impossible resistance. Admiral Kethra read the report in her quarters and felt something she had never felt before. She felt doubt. We are losing this war, she said to her empty room. We are losing because we do not understand them. Every dog we kill creates a monster. Every handler we wound turns their dogs into demons. The bond between them is not weakness. She looked at the holographic image of a human marine standing with a war dog. Both of them battered but unbowed. Both of them ready to fight to the death. It is strength, she whispered. And we have nothing like it. The turning tide had come, and the Valorans were running out of time. The final battle came on a cold morning above New Virginia, humanity's largest colony world. 3 million civilians looked up at the sky and saw fire. The Valoran Empire had committed everything. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon they had left. Admiral Kethra knew this was her last chance. If she could destroy New Virginia, break humanity's spirit, kill enough of their dogs, maybe she could still win. But deep in her heart, she already knew the truth. She had already lost. Commander Jake Morris stood on the bridge of the Defiant Hope, humanity's newest and largest battle cruiser. 2 years of war had changed him. There were lines on his face that had not been there before, gray in his hair that made him look older than his 33 years, and a hardness in his eyes that came from watching too many friends die. But Archer was still at his feet. The old dog was 7 now, ancient for a war dog, but he refused to retire. Where Jake went, Archer went. That was simply how it was. Admiral Kethra is on the flagship Eternal Conquest, Jake's tactical officer reported. She's leading the attack personally. If we can take her out, the Valoran command structure will collapse. Jake nodded. Then that's our target. All boarding teams, prepare for assault. Diana Cole checked her weapon one more time. Bear pressed against her leg, his gray muzzle resting on her knee. He was old too. 10 years now. The oldest active war dog in the fleet. The military had tried to retire him 3 times. Each time, Diana had refused. We've been through everything together, she had told them. We'll finish this together too. Beside her, Samantha Price loaded magazines into her vest while Ghost watched the door. Tony Garcia sat quietly with Max, the Dutch shepherd they had rescued from the Valoran research vessel so long ago. Max had a few more scars now, and one of his ears was torn. But his eyes were still fierce, and in the corner, separated from the others, sat Luna. The Belgian Malinois had never fully recovered from Danny Reeves's death. She had been assigned to new handlers 3 times. Each time she had refused to bond with them. She worked. She followed commands. But the light in her eyes, the joy that war dogs were supposed to have, was gone. Jake walked over to her and knelt down. Luna looked at him with sad amber eyes. I know, girl, Jake said softly. I know you miss him. But Danny wouldn't want you to give up. He'd want you to fight. One more time. For him, Luna's tail moved, just slightly. The first sign of life anyone had seen in her for months. One more time, Jake repeated. Then you can rest. I promise. The assault began 20 minutes later. Drop pods launched from the Defiant Hope, punching through the hull of the Valoran flagship like bullets through paper. 30 handlers and 30 dogs poured into the enemy ship, fighting through corridors that ran with blood. The Valorans fought hard. They knew this was the end. They knew that if they fell here, their empire would fall with them. But they were facing humans. Humans and their dogs. And after 2 years of war, that combination had become the most feared thing in the galaxy. Diana and Bear led the assault on the engineering section. The massive German Shepherd was slower than he used to be, but his teeth were just as sharp. He took down 3 Valorn guards in the first 30 seconds, giving Diana time to plant explosives on the power cord. Samantha and Ghost cleared the weapons bay, moving like shadows, killing without sound. The Valorn soldiers never even saw them coming. Tony and Max pushed toward the bridge, Jake and Archer right behind them. The fighting was brutal, hand to hand, tooth and claw. Max took a plasma burn to his side, but kept fighting. Archer killed a Valorn officer twice his size, his old body moving with all the speed and fury of his younger days. And Luna found something none of them expected. She broke away from her handler, following a scent that only she could detect. Through smoke and fire, past dead Valorns and dying humans, she ran until she found a door at the end of a long corridor. Behind that door was a room full of cages. And in those cages were dogs. Captured war dogs, taken from fallen handlers, kept alive for study and experimentation. There were at least 20 of them, all watching the door with desperate hope. Luna threw herself at the control panel, scratching and biting until the locks disengaged. The cages opened. 20 war dogs poured out, confused and scared, but ready to fight. Luna barked once, sharp and commanding. The other dogs fell in behind her, following her lead. She had found a new pack, and she was going to bring them home. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, Admiral Kethra watched her empire crumble. Her guards were dead. Her officers had fled. Only she remained, standing before the main view screen, watching human ships tear through her fleet. The door behind her exploded inward. Jake Morris walked through the smoke, Archer at his side. Behind him came Tony, Samantha, Diana, and dozens of other handlers with their dogs. And at the end, leading a pack of rescued war dogs, came Luna. Kethra turned to face them. She was tall, proud, refusing to show fear even at the end. "You have won," she said, "but you have not destroyed us. The Valoran Empire will rise again. And next time, we will be ready for your dogs." Jake shook his head slowly. "No, you won't." He walked toward her, Archer keeping pace beside him. The old dog's muzzle was stained with blood, but his eyes were calm, almost gentle. "You mocked us," Jake said. "You called us weak for loving our dogs. But that love made us stronger than you could ever understand. We don't fight because we hate you. We fight because we love each other. Every soldier, every civilian, every dog." He stopped a few feet from Kethra and looked her in the eyes. "That's something you can never break. That's something you will never have. And that's why you lost." Admiral Kethra ordered the Valorans surrender the next morning. The war was over. In the months that followed, the Galactic Council added a new amendment to their treaties. It was simple, only one line, but it carried the weight of 2 years of blood and sacrifice. No species shall underestimate humanity, and no one ever mocks the war dogs. On New Virginia, a memorial was built in the capital city. It depicted a soldier kneeling beside a dog, their heads bowed together, partners in war and in peace. At the base of the statue, carved in stone, were the names of every war dog who had given their life in the Valoran conflict. 412 names. Each one remembered. Each one honored. Jake Morris visited every year on the anniversary of the final battle. He was older now, retired from the military, living on a small farm that reminded him of home. He brought flowers for Archer's grave because the old dog had finally passed 3 years after the war ended, dying peacefully in his sleep with Jake's hand on his fur. A new puppy sat beside Jake now. a Belgian Malinois named Scout. She was only 8 months old, still learning, still growing. But she had the same look in her eyes that Archer had once had. The same loyalty. The same love. Jake scratched behind her ears and looked up at the statue. "We did it, boy," he whispered to the wind. "We did it together." Scout pressed against his leg, warm and alive. A promise that the bond would continue. That the legacy would survive. Because humans did not just use dogs for war. They fought alongside them. They died for them. They loved them not and together. They were unconquerable. The end.